Hi everyone, and welcome to Talking Family History with Fiona and Michelle.
I thought this was more the madhouse than talking family history this week.
Yeah, we're having lots of fun today getting ready for this news, so it's all cool though. And welcome to the news of the 9th of June 2023, and happy International Archives Day, Michelle.
Oh, excellent. One of those favourite places to go to.
It is, and so this week has been International Archives Week, and so just remember that we have some really nice archivists out there that are doing wonderful things for us all, and so much more is hidden behind the scenes that we hope they unveil to us and make even more available. But I was really interested that I saw they had a hashtag here, Michelle, and I thought, I wonder if people know what to do with those hashtags. And so I thought, well, let's see, we'll go over to Twitter. And if you are a Twitter member, don't know what that makes you.
Twitterati, it's called.
Twitterati, there we go. You can click on the explore button and actually put that hashtag in. And because New Zealand is the first to sort of greet the day, a lot of the posts that came up initially were all New Zealand Archives posting because of the fact that we got out there first for Archives Day. So it was great to see some posts coming through, but you can also use those hashtags over on places like YouTube as well. Here's some of the more formal ones from the International Council on Archives that they put out because it's 75 years of International Archives Week. So that's pretty cool, eh? So yes, so that's just to head us into talking about some of the archives that we use as family historians. And so here's your update on what is new around the traps. So coming out from the UK to start off with, a few more of the Hampshire. We were talking about Hampshire last time, I think, weren't we, Michelle?
Yeah, they just keep adding more and more. I think that means there's more indexing gets done.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. So you do have some Hampshire records. There's some city and regional directories from Ireland that have been updated as well. But I must admit, it was when I went to the USA collections that they'd updated, and on another version of this, you also get to see how many records, and look at that New York newspapers collections and how many records there are. There's a whole lot of numbers with a whole lot of commas in between them.
That's just way too big a number for my brain today.
I know. I had to go and look up, do we call that a million, billion, you know, what is it? And it is a billion records in there.
Yeah. And I just want to draw your attention at the top to the 31 census, because I talked about this a couple of days ago, and it had been released on the 1st and updated again on the 2nd. So instead of saying new as a new starter set, it said updated. So don't always assume everything you're looking at when you go to this section of the site that it isn't a new data set. It's just they keep updating on a regular basis. And so, yeah, this was actually a new data set 6 days before they updated it again.
Yeah, and it's so new that the records are still being indexed as well. So at the moment, it's a browsable collection on Ancestry, and they, along with Family Search, are working on this. And in fact, there's a slide a little bit later on from the Family Search perspective as well. And one thing I did find, though, is I did find a tweet, because I was out there playing on Twitter, and it was talking about how do you use the browse if you're not exactly sure what the regions are. And so this tweet came from the libraries in Canada, and it was talking about using these 1924 federal electoral district maps, which are very similar to the 1931 districts. So this gives you an idea of where those districts are so that you can browse to get yourself in the right area. Because I don't know about you, Michelle, but I don't know very many Canadian electoral district names.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. And then there's always the embarrassment of how to pronounce them. So for some of us, we might be surprised that the library and the archives are one organisation in Canada as well. So people often tell you to go to the library site, but actually it's also where all the archives are, because there's quite an it's not synchronous. There's a synchronicity. Anyway, it's a symmetry about what the work is. So it works well together.
Sure does. But if you do go and browse, you will find those records are there to go and look at. But as we say, we know that behind the scenes, they're working on this as a great big project, and they'll hope to have the most out really soon, won't they?
Yeah, they're not using the same method. Again, this was the presentation I was in on Wednesday night this week. I had an Ancestry pro genealogist guest, with me, Deb Carter, and she said that they're not using the same process as last time, and they're using a different set of AI for it. So it is going to be really interesting to see how quickly this rolls out. It's more complex than the 1950 US census as well, far more columns, but there's lots of really interesting information about the land. And so, yeah, something to investigate. I'm looking forward to going in and searching for countries that aren't Canada, and just to see if those, how many strays are there from other countries that have gone there in this time frame. I know there will be New Zealanders and Australian and people from the UK and Ireland as well. So it will be really interesting just to see that mix, because I've had various members of family come and go.
And I'm guessing also, just looking even at the headings at the top of this page, you can see there's 2 sets of headings, one in English, one in French. And I would imagine having the French language in amongst these records as well makes things just that little bit more difficult for the AI to work around. Challenging, exactly. But you're also giving tips this week, Michelle.
Yeah, but I was going to say we could take a bet. It was 9 days to do the 1950 US census. I wonder how many days it's going to take to do this data set, because we're already researching we're recording a day before, day 9. So will we see it next week? Maybe the week after, when you think of the complexities of the huge amount of extra columns alone, let alone the language complications. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is definitely a huge page, isn't it, when you look at that and just see all of those columns. I do notice already, though, when I went onto this page on Ancestry, the little orange line highlights the row you're on, which makes it a whole lot easier to follow your eye right across the page on it. So that's really useful.
Thank goodness for that.
I know.
So, yeah, so Ancestry is also rolling out some new tools, but they're rolling them out globally. Not everyone has them. So, warning, there's nothing wrong with you if you don't have it yet. I only have it partially, which is also entertaining in itself. So if you click on where it says activity, and you'll see that highlighted at the moment on the left-hand side. So this is in the tree view of your software. You'll get this dialog box that you can now see on the right, and you'll see it's got that big green beta logo on it. That means they're rolling this out. It's not everybody's got it yet, and it's coming. I'm told by the staff that I was talking with on Wednesday night, Deb, that it's meant to be out to everyone by sometime in August. So don't, it's coming. It also gets tweaked along the way because of feedback. But you'll notice there's 3 tabs underneath: tasks, changes, and viewers. And this is all about collaboration. So quite a few people, I don't have any close family, so it's not applicable to me. So I can't show you active examples. And I'm going to develop one actually with a friend, because just for being able to teach it. But it's about working together. So if you and your mum and dad are working on a tree, or you and your brothers and sisters, or maybe even an aunt, uncle, or a cousin, or maybe your children, whoever's invited your tree, you can see the tasks they've done in the list. Now, I haven't got anybody, so there's none in my list. But if you go to the next slide, then you can also check all the changes that they've made. So you can write the tasks in the same way you might write a comment, or you can actually show the list of everything that people have done. And you can go back and undo what you may or may not have liked that got done, or at least you have a good idea. Oh, look, I don't have to do that now. That's been done. But right down the bottom of that section, there's a little eye. And it should.
It's coming.
It's coming. So always click on those kind of boxes. When it's new, it's worth reading the whole screen. And if you click on that box, you'll get the following screen, which is coming too.
Yes.
And it's really hard to read. So we blew it up so you can see it shows the helpful recent changes for everyone that's shared to this tree, and they're test running it right before it's in. So how come I knew it's being rolled out and it's being test driven? It's being test driven by some, not everybody, before it gets rolled out.
And so I know that I've got the test view of it at the moment, so I can see the changes. And so even if you haven't shared your tree, you can see the changes. And I find it actually really good, because it just reminds you of what you were doing last time on this family tree.
Yeah.
So as a little sort of prompt of what were you doing? So I can see, for example, mine saying I updated the notes on Jane Richardson a week ago. And if you listen to the podcast I was on, you'll know I'm working on Jane Richardson and who the heck she actually is. So I was having a little bit of a focus on updating some bits and pieces on her on my ancestry tree, just to see if I could make it work.
And there's another new tool coming out, which isn't showing yet. So across the top where the activity is, ultimately there'll be another button called circles. And I don't have it yet, but I've seen it demonstrated. So, wait, there's more. But the final tab is viewers. Now, the demonstration I was watching yesterday, the person that I was watching was Krista Cowan, and she didn't have viewers in her list. So we're not getting everything rolled out to us at the same time. And because I don't have anyone that's viewed it and that I've set all this up with, it's empty. But you can see down the bottom, if you decide you don't want other people to track who have seen things, you can turn this off. So it's always good to, again, click on that link and go through and read all the backstory. So that's the new tree collaboration tools coming out, and a time near you from Ancestry.
Sure is. So it's really interesting. And I know from some of the trees that I've got, it's on some of the trees and not all of the trees, or some of them have parts of it and not all of it. So it is being rolled out through the trees bits by bit. So don't panic if you haven't got it. It's just that you know about it in advance, don't they?
Yeah. So you can always expect change.
They can indeed. Okay, so over to Family Search. There are some updates or some additional records coming out for some immigration papers. Now, I haven't played in these. Have you played in these at all, Michelle?
No, we've had a lot of stuff going on the home front, so I haven't done anything actually.
That's okay. So over in the UK and Ireland, there are Middlesex parish registers, always good, because I know that I have lots of people to go and play with in there. And I must admit, seem to have been living in Surrey this week with the research I've been doing. So
I do like the 6 million though. That's a nice number. And then,
yeah,
then
6
further
million
down
is
the
quite
wills
nice,
at 8 million. I like big numbers.
Should have been a mathematician. Okay, over in Europe, here's a nice big number then for you. What about that 21 million down a little bit further for Slovakia?
It's close enough to 22. Give it a break.
Yeah, let's round it up. Okay, and what's interesting in the rest of these images that we're looking at here, you'll see one of them doesn't have the records yet. It just has browse images. So some of them, they are still actually indexing as well, and you'll know that lots of volunteers are out there indexing projects all of the time. Through to the USA, there's birth, death, marriage records, funeral home records, and a few little census records coming out for village census rolls in Alaska as well. So it's always good to see what's new. Down into Mexico, some records there coming out from the church. You'll notice that there's a big empty gap for Canada at the moment, but of course they are part of this 1931 Canadian census project. And I think I read somewhere that it might be 10 million people. I think it was. Yes, there we go. Details of over 10 million people in that census. So it will be coming through to Family Search as well at some stage. And then through to South America, Central America, and then into South America. And there is some big record sets coming through in here as well, Michelle, which are areas, as we've talked about, that you don't know what you're going to find there until you go looking. And you may find that there's some relatives that were doing some things between New Zealand and South America in particular, because I know there was quite a big farming industry and exchange between the two countries. So you never know what you'll find out when you go looking.
I knew some sisters in Rotorua who'd actually come via South America, and they were actually born elsewhere, but the families moved to South America first. And it's a continuing area of interest for Family Search. Of course, it's much easier for them to get just down there than it is to always come to places like the Pacific.
And then over in Africa, we've got some Cape Town archives records being put up as well. And I think I sort of semi-mentioned this a couple of weeks ago with the ability to see who your face matches in your relatives' photos' faces. I'm not sure whether it's for me, but I think this is a nice way of perhaps getting some others involved. I think my problem is going to be I don't have enough photos up on my family tree more than anything else. But I did note that there was a disclaimer when I first went into this morning to talk about the fact that your photos are going out to a third party company involved in that as well.
Yes, something to always read the fine print.
Sure is. Over at Find My Past, some new records that are coming out, British school and university students. This is a collation of a whole lot of different record sets being put together in one collection. And then some Roman Catholic records from that sort of Southwark area in the wider London, Middlesex area as such. So nice to see those Catholic records coming through. And then over on the other screen that we've got of new records, more school records in the Yorkshire area, which also sort of matches through to those Yorkshire baptisms as well, which is quite a nice sort of grouping of records to see a baptism and then find kids going to school, and then a whole lot of military bulletins as well. And then the newspaper collections, well, the new titles was quite a shortish list, although shortish list really, I think, did I read somewhere there's 83 million pages now being done here. So short isn't really short as in how many pages, it's just a short collection of newspapers. But when we look at the updated titles, this list just went on and on and on. In fact, I had trouble fitting it on one screen. Plus, there's more. So watch out and look for those newspapers as well, because it's always worth catching up with what has come on and what is new on these, and keeping track of when you last searched to know what other years might be in these collections.
Wouldn't it be nice if they did something like a Google alert search functionality, so you could develop a search string on the newspaper archives for your family and just get them to alert you whenever something new matches it? Wouldn't that be fun? I must think about whether I can concoct that.
Okay, that should keep the brain going for the next couple of weeks.
Oh.
I also noticed this one just also came up just today, which is that Find My Past are sponsoring the Women's Prize Trust Prize for Non-Fiction. And so it'll be interesting to see what new books come out of that, because we've both got bookshelves behind us and we might be a little bit of collectors of books. So we like new books to come out. And so anything that encourages that is great.
I heard a really good interview of a female writer in New Zealand this week, and there's a new Fijian origin but Australian-based new writer as well, I heard yesterday. So there's a few of them out there. Just we should encourage them to apply. I bet you have to be has to be published in the UK.
Does have to be published
and
in the UK.
More of that fine print to read.
It is indeed. Okay, over on My Heritage this time, looking at a few collections. There's some nice Scotland records in there, plus some from Europe. Diving over into the States, a whole collection of births, divorces, deaths, marriages, a bit of everything floating around in those ones this time. But the biggest news,
how many divorces they find.
Yeah, well, there's 2 million divorces in Tennessee in that new collection.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin's got divorces in it as well, and North Dakota. So,
must be very different from how it's recorded in our countries, because ours are not so readily available.
No. But the biggest news, Michelle, was this new app that they have got called Reimagine for scanning your photos. And I know we were both quite taken with the idea that you could just scan the whole page of your photograph album, even when the photos are higgledy-piggledy, like you can see in that little screenshot there, and it will scan them all as individual photos.
Yeah, I was privy to a demonstration on this when I was at Roots Tech back in March, and that was the thing that grabbed me. I don't want to necessarily colorize my images, but I do want to get rid of the creases, and I don't necessarily want to animate anybody and put their voices on, but I don't have a scanner anymore. And so when I go to people's homes and they want to share things with me, I'm using my camera, and it's not ideal because of the skew and the alignment more than anything else, and just how long it takes if you're doing every single photo separately. So this feature of splitting up, taking just a scanned image with your camera of one page in a photograph album and having the software automatically clip it into individual photos, I think that's fantastic. It's a free product to download. So, you know, more of us might want to go and do that.
Absolutely. Coming back to sort of this side of the world, new newspapers on Trove in June from Victoria and New South Wales. And then diving back over to the other side of the world, I must admit, I might have been reading the National Archives email that came out this morning as well, and talking about the Windrush passenger list going on exhibition. So it's really interesting to see both what our archives are doing, but also that they've got things like the reflections of a volunteer during a transcription project. And I really like this handling of historic collections. The gloves are still off, and the idea that you don't necessarily have to wear those white gloves that we see on lots of TV programs, because often that actually damages the document more than if you didn't wear gloves. But I might be going off to read about the Hampton Court robbery. I quite like Hampton Court, so I'm off to hear about why there's a robbery involved.
Yep, Snap. I always feel like that too. It's one of my favourite places when I visit the UK.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. We had some Chinese records last time, or the time before, and also looking at these Chinese indenture aboard the Windrush in 1948. So quite a few things there. But you've been listening to podcasts, Michelle.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't often find sort of American history necessarily relevant to many of us whom I know are mostly based UK, have Canada research, Australia, New Zealand. But I found this actually fascinating. In many ways, there's quite a large chunk of this is describing the migration into California and the different means and methods people use, but also the different places they came from. And I just think it's actually gave a lot of social context that I hadn't thought about before from a global point of view. So I would encourage you to all have a listen to it if you have the time to give it. I know that we've got a number of people in my families that went over to California and came back. But it's just more than that. It's like mechanisms and distance travel and getting more to think about the actual journey of migration. So I just found this was quite an interesting and valuable podcast on many levels, not just about California and gold.
Excellent. And the webinar that I recorded this week for Legacy Family Tree webinars, it's up and available for free for this next week. And then after that, it will be as part of the subscription. And in that, I covered intentions to marry. I covered parish registers, which is something that we possibly don't use enough in New Zealand, and I'm not sure what's happening over in Australia. We also talked about police gazettes, and the last thing I talked about was the Wilson collection, which is another fabulous resource that we all use. But sadly this week, the lovely Diane Wilson passed away. So we remember Diane with fondness, but I have to say I'm quite impressed by the obituary, the death notice. Yeah. You can see the hand of a genealogist in there.
Absolutely. In fact, I had to post that publicly because I was fortunate to actually go and visit with Diane a few weeks ago. Her diagnosis, I believe, was quite late last year. And yeah, it was a privilege to actually be able to give her some time when she has so little left. But she and I both had a love of embroidery, and she had a beautiful samplers collection on her walls. So I actually went to talk to her about that. But also just the whole thing of indexing and donating so much of your time and your life and towards that over many, many years. And I spent some time watching Murray, her husband, actually do a lot of this indexing assistance over the years. So pleased to say the Wilson collection will continue. It's going to have a stand at the Auckland Family History Expo with some of their volunteers, which everything about the Wilson collection is a voluntary service. I'm going to give a lecture at the Family History Expo in Auckland as well on the Wilson collection. So may she rest in peace, and she will be missed and by many, but most grateful to her service to the community globally, really.
Absolutely. And that collection will live on. And you often keep talking about ancestry at the Society as well, Michelle.
Yes, so I think this is our third year. Like I think we reached 3 years in May that myself and someone from Ancestry ProGen or somebody from Ancestry the business or even an Ancestry contractor like yourself, I have a guest every month on the first Wednesday of every month doing Ancestry tips. And the Society of Australian Genealogists have made this open to all for a price, of course, because we're a charity that needs to earn some money. And so we do a 6 monthly season ticket. So they just have gone on sale. So if you want some more tips about using the Ancestry website or want to be able to submit questions and have some people with experience answer them, so myself and whoever my guest is, I know we're going to be talking about merging trees and techniques of doing that with other software, because it's not possible on the site. We get a lot of questions about merging trees, and we're going to talk about, if we happen to have got the circle thing arrive, we'll be demonstrating it, otherwise August or September. But when both myself and Deb Carter get that, you'll be showing it. But yeah, we've had all sorts of guests like Brad Argent's come on, and we've had Laura House from the UK, and Simon Pearce, who's a military expert. He usually comes at least twice a year. So yeah, it's a lot of fun we have first Wednesday of every month. So I hope to see some of you there.
Excellent. And Family History Month is coming in August, and I noticed that the Australian Federation of Family History Organisations, FO, are starting their call for putting things on the Family History Month website. So make sure that if you are organising something within your groups, make sure you get it up there as well. Michelle and I will both be in Auckland in August. For this, the program's not quite out. It's really close, but it's not quite out. But we are both speaking on the Friday night and then over the weekend as well. And then I know that there's things afoot for Christchurch as well the following weekend.
Yeah, so should we say save the date? And
absolutely.
There's 4 of us talking from 3 different countries on the Friday night, and we're all talking about the same topic. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah. And that is it from us this fortnight. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We hope you go off and have some fun as usual. If you need some help from either of us, please feel free to contact us. And as I say, thanks for watching.
And we might be doing a few live things, so don't forget to press subscribe and notifications, and the same over on our Facebook page.
Absolutely. Make sure you're on our mailing list, because that's how you find out if we decide to go and do something different at some stage, Michelle.
Yeah, like, oh my God, the sun's out today. I might just run away.
No time for family history when the sun's out. Oh, I don't know about that.
I haven't seen the sun for weeks. Come on, give me a break.
Hey, but thanks for watching, and this is Talking Family History.
Hooroo.